What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to bring you a 2014 WCQ hat format tier list. This is the first tier list that I'm going to be making, and hopefully, if you guys enjoy this type of video, I will have more in the future. What I wanted to make a tier list for is with so many new people getting into hat format, I wanted to talk about deck difficulty and how hard it is to learn some of the more popular decks, and not just how hard it is to learn, but also if I were to hand you one of these decks, how easy would it be for a new player to actually pick up the deck and play it? And the idea with this also is, let's say maybe you've seen one or two people play a match, but maybe, so you know, for example, a deck is supposed to get to a certain end board, but you don't know how to do it. So a good example for that is like how you see the Quasar deck here. Obviously, you know the Synchro deck is trying to get to Quasar, but you don't exactly know how to do that. So hopefully that will make a little more sense when we actually get into talking more about this. I have four different tiers set up here. From the bottom, I have easy. These are the decks that I could hand you, and with just a little bit of reading, you could probably play the deck very well. 50-50, which are the decks that are they're easy, but they still have some complexity to them. I wouldn't even say complexity, maybe just more options of what you can do. I have take skill, which means you're going to have to think a bit more about in-depth play. Keep in mind, all of these are going to take some form of skill. Even the easy ones, there are choices you have to make on which cards to use, when to use them, and things like that. But anyways, back to this, take skill is going to be ones that you probably need to practice a bit more, whether that's because they have a combo you need to know, or just in general, there are a lot of different lines you can go with. And then at the top, I have the most difficult tier, which are the decks that without actual like gameplay and heavier testing, it's going to be really hard to see all the different lines the deck have, along with usually these are going to be closer to the combo decks that just have so many different options of what you can actually do with the cards. And so, yeah, hopefully it'll make a bit more sense. But let's get started. I tried to pick, again, more popular decks that you will see more commonly in hat format. So if you are interested in some of the more rogue options and stuff, you can either comment in the comment section those decks, and I can kind of talk you through my opinion on those as well. Or maybe if you guys want, I can make a more in-depth tier list with some of the more rogue options and different things like that. And if you're interested in any sort of deck lists for these different decks, in the description, I'll have my playlist that will include all my different deck profiles for all these different decks. So afterwards, if you're interested in a deck, you can go to the description, check out that link, and find some cool deck profiles on these decks. But let's start off here with Bujin. Bujin, I think, is your stereotypical helmet deck. This is by far one of the easiest decks to pick up and learn. Obviously, again, you're going to need to know some form of gameplay, whether that's which cards to send first or add to hand at certain times. But for the most part, you're just trying to get to Yamato and protect him. It's, a very simple deck. After that, we have Hat. Hat, I want to say, is also a pretty easy deck. This one is going to have more choices versus, say, Bujin, but for the most part, Hat, if you know what the trap tricks do, it's easy to play. It's a more control grindy deck, so it's smaller interactions that you actually need to know, but overall, a very simple deck as well. After that, we have Heraldic Beast. This one's kind of weird. I want to put it somewhere between like easy and 50-50. I might move some of these around as I get into some of the other decks, but for this, I guess I sort of want to put it, it I want to put it at 50-50 for right now. And the reason I say that is because compared to like Hat and Bujin, um, Heraldic Beast has a lot of plays. Obviously, it's a rank 4 focused deck, so you're trying to make rank 4s, and you play a lot of extenders and different things. But I think after that, you need to know how to kind of decide which exceeds to go into first, how to play through certain situations if you don't open the most back row and different things. So I still think this is an easy deck, and I almost want to put it in easy, but I think for right now, 50-50 is a very good spot to put it in. After that, we have Water or Mermail. Mermail definitely takes skill. This deck, it has so many different options, whether it's like if you open Teus plus a discard, if you open and try to go for a Mooling Glacia line, just managing your resources and trying to end on optimal boards that can be either control or just pushing for game and doing some of the more combo um, type things that Mermail is known for. I definitely think it's on a slightly higher power scale as well. And so I think just being able to practice with this deck and learn what all the different interactions, for example, Lind having some damage step implications and things, is important to know stuff like that. So I definitely want to put Mermail in take skill. After that, Mythic Ruler. This deck, I it's between take skill and kind of your crazy S tier type of deck. And the reason I say that is sure, Mythic Ruler has a lot of draw power, so sometimes just drawing through things. But in the hands where it's a little more awkward, less draw power, you need to know what dragons to send, which ones to banish, how to manage your resources. So it is very similar in a sense to Mermail. So I almost want to put it kind of at your high end of take skill, maybe even this. I think for now, I'll just put it in the take skill. Both of these decks are complex for different reasons. And yeah, just Mythic Ruler is one of those decks where sometimes if you just pick up the deck or if you've been watching how the gameplay goes, it is kind of difficult. So definitely going to put that there for now. Infernity, it has a lot of lines. It's not quite as easy as say Mythic Ruler that has like, its basic soul charge plays. There's a lot more interaction and knowing when to search what, when to go for say Diamond Direwolf to pop your field to then get more extenders and things. So here I'm going to put Infernity at one of the more complicated decks just because it has so many different lines, and when you get interrupted it completely changes its game plan. And just there's so many different things you can do with Infernity, um, but there's not enough I can really say about that. So moving on, we have Geargia. Geargia, I would say regular Geargia, I'll put in easy. I'm gonna put it closer to the end here. I think it is a little more difficult to play than, well, it's obviously more difficult to play than Bujin. Um, but for the most part, sometimes if you're playing the more grindy game with Geargia, a lot of times you are just trying to find your Geargia gear or find your armor and then slowly get resources and outgrind your opponent with trap cards and different things. Sure, like again, what I said, a lot of these decks do take skill and resource management and stuff, but in terms of decks like it, Geargia is pretty straightforward. After that, we have Constellar Artifact. Constellar Artifact, it kind of falls similar with Hat, but I kind of also want to put it with Heraldic if I'm going to keep Heraldic in the 50-50 range. Um, I these two just feel weird, the 50-50s, because like if you're trying to go for Pleiades as quickly as possible with this deck, but at the same time if you don't, you're just trying to play a kind of grindy artifact game. But I guess in terms of how you actually play this, I want to say that it is kind of simple. Like I said, if you're trying to open like Pollux plus cost and go for a rank 5, and then after that I feel it's pretty simple. I want to say it's probably pretty close to Hat or Geargia in that sense. If we're putting them in the easier, you can just pick up the deck and play it. After that, Spellbook. Spellbook, I think, because a lot of it is kind of playing solitaire, like Summon Blue Boy Search, um, secrets into master, and so on and so forth, and then basic resource management. I want to say it's easy, but at the same time, resource management can be a little difficult more than, say, these easy decks. So I'm going to say it's definitely a more difficult version of for the 50-50. I would say it's probably easier to play than Mermail and definitely easier to play than Mythics, in my personal opinion. Again, if you guys play with these more, I'm just coming from a beginner standpoint in terms of how I want to think about this. So I'm going to put Spellbook here at the end. So keep in mind, as I go down the list, that means it gets more difficult. So the closer it is to easy, the easier it is. So, for example, in this case, Bujin is easier to play than the Constellar deck. So in this case, I think that Spellbook is more difficult to play than Heraldic. But yeah, next after this, we have Geargia Karakuri. It's definitely more difficult than regular Geargia, and I want to say this has quite a lot of lines. So I guess for this one, it's interesting. I want to put this in take skill, just because the different combo lines, if you open different Karakuri monsters, can definitely change based on um, just sort of which monsters you open, if you see enough accelerators, if you see Geargia gear. It changes a lot. I want to put this probably close to the beginning of take skill. So in this case, this is like the easiest of the take skill decks, just because you have to learn the different lines and things and how you actually want to end on your board. But I don't think this is even the most complicated deck. In terms of these, I'm actually going to swap these around. I think Mythic Ruler is kind of a little more difficult to play for a beginner for just resource management than Mermail. So far this. After that, we have Lightsworn or Lightsworn Ruler. Um, this I'm going to put, I want to either put it at a more difficult 50-50 or somewhere in take skill, because I feel like it's just really up to how well your mills are. And with something like that, it's a simple deck. It's very straightforward. You're just trying to get to your boards and mill, but at the same time, you need to know how to play through it. So I'll put it actually, I think Lightsworn Ruler is easier than Geargia Karakuri. So I think we'll just put that for here. In terms of 3.5 Access Fire Fist, a lot of people really like this deck. I think this is one of those decks where learning the basic line is the hardest thing, and then once you realize the main lines, whether that's with like instant fusion and Tenki or just the spirit lines, it becomes so much more simple. So I'm gonna put that above Heraldic Beast, but less than Spellbook. So I think Spellbook is more difficult. And again, really just learning the Horse Prince line is probably the hardest part of this deck. Quasar, I am going to put up here at the kind of crazy level. You can sometimes like give someone a synchro deck and they can get to Quasar, especially in a format like this that has Soul Charge and just powerful cards that kind of benefit you the more you just kind of combo off. But I think if you were to hand them a deck, they probably would not be able to figure out the simple or like 3 and 4 card combo lines to get to Quasar, especially not the most ideally. And I also think that just in general, if they don't open the most ideal, a lot of people fold under this deck just because they don't know how to do it. This is a deck that definitely takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice. Like sometimes even I still pick up this deck and there's just so many options that it's overwhelming. So I think that's a good place to put it. After that, Madolche. Madolche kind of falls into the same category as Fire Fist. Once you learn the basic Angeli lines, whether that's, the Mewtwo into Angeli, Angeli into Hoot Cake, Banish one, then go for like Leviair or Invoker and go into your rank 4. I think it's pretty simple. There is a lot of interaction. I kind of want to put it somewhere between like before and after Spellbook. It's so similar to 3.5 Axis Fire Fist, but I think just for. I think I'm going to keep it right here. So we'll have it like this. After that, we have Hieratic Ruler. Hieratic Ruler is definitely easier than Mythic Ruler, and I think part of that just comes down to uh, it being more archetypal than, say, Mythics. and also the deck is slightly more bricky, so you kind of just have to play with what you have. That being said, though, I want to put it probably at the end of 50-50. This is starting to get a little more difficult, simply because you need to play ideally, but I don't see this as the most difficult deck, especially, again, we're coming from a standpoint where you at least have seen a game or two and you know kind of the basics of what your cards do. You just don't know all the combo lines and things. Evil Swarm is back to an easy deck. I want to put that probably right after Bujin. So Bujin is super easy. Evil Swarm is also extremely easy. Just kind of resource management with your trap cards. And then after that, just trying to make Ophion and protect it. So gonna put that there. After that, we have Cat, so the card car version of Hat. This I think is more difficult than Hat itself for a couple reasons. You have less board breaking potential because this deck doesn't play the hands, and also you're playing hand traps. And I think knowing key points of interaction is a lot more difficult than, say, summoning a fire hand, crashing into a monster, popping it, summoning an ice hand, and continuing through their board. As well as knowing even late game when you should summon a card car because you're not going to lose the next turn, just to gain a little bit of easy advantage, but not to the point of putting you in a losing position. Do I think this deck is difficult though? I don't want to put it in take skill, because I'm sure I could hand this to someone and they could still play it. I feel like it almost is going to go at kind of the easiest deck in the 50-50 category. So I think, yeah, that's probably the best place. I kind of want to put it at the end of easy. Like, it is very straightforward. But again, I just think in terms of interaction, hand traps is difficult. Well, more difficult, I should say. And then lastly, we have Sylvans. Sylvans definitely takes skill. I'm going to put it in the take skill category. And where do I want to put this? I probably want to put it right between Geargia, Karakuri, and Mermail. I think that's a good place. I think it takes more skill than Geargia, Karakuri, but a little less skill than Mermail. These are kind of equal. All three of these sort of are, so I kind of want to group these three specifically together. I don't want you guys to think like one versus the other. These are very, very even in a sense. So just keep that in mind. And this is the tier list. So easiest deck, Bujin, then Evil Swarm, Constellar Artifact, Hat, regular Geargia. Then moving on to the 50-50, the easiest one is going to be Cat. Then Heraldic. Heraldic could actually maybe move here. I don't know. I'm still undecided about this one. Then 3.5 Axis Fire Fist. Then Spellbook. Then Madolche. Then Hieratic Ruler. After that, the easiest of the take skill is probably Lightsworn Ruler. This one, again, could probably go at the end of 50-50. Some of these are very interchangeable. And again, it is a little difficult to come from a point where you don't know too much about these decks, especially for, like myself, who's been playing this format for so long. Then Sylvan, then we have Mermail and Mythic Ruler. Again, these three group really well together. And then for the ones that you probably need to study up pretty hard is going to be Infernity, and then if you want to play the Doppel Quasar deck. But anyways, this is just my opinion for this list. If you guys disagree, let me know in the comments section. If you guys want to see more videos like this, definitely let me know in the comments section as well. Or if you have questions about different types of things, let me know. I'm always trying to respond to as many comments and things as possible. Also, still working on the formatting of how I want to go about this all looking. Right now, it does look a little crammed up in my opinion, so I'm going to work on that to fix that too. But anyways, guys, make sure you are liking the video, commenting anything that you want, subscribing to the channel, hitting the bell, and getting notified anytime I put a new video out. Share this video with your friends, and anyways, guys, I will see you in the next video.